On the Willis Report.
Days after General Motors recalled their Chevy Cobalts and Pontiac G5s due to faulty ignitions, GM has expanded that list with 5 more models. That brings the number of recalls to 1.6 million vehicles and the death toll to 13. So is this just the beginning? Joining me now, car expert Lauren Fix and attorney Lance Cooper, who represented a Georgia family suing the company over the death of their daughter. He says GM knew about the problems years ago. Lauren, I'm going to start with you. This has been a story a long time in the making, years and years and years. Why hasn't GM been more forthcoming about information with this problem?
Well, that's the question. You know, I think it was back that there's been a lot of changes in management, and of course you had the government involved. I don't know why. The truth is there's no reason to hide this when you've got deaths involved. And I'm not a lawyer, but I'll tell you what, as a lawyer, he's going to have a lot to work with, because this is crazy that consumers are dying. Cars have problems over something this simple that could have been fixed. The fact that GM didn't take a stake in their customers, in their brand recognition to say, this is going to take a long time to heal. This is going to take a long time for GM to recover.
13 fatalities, as you say, 31 crashes. Lance, I turn to you now. I want you to tell us about your client, the family of your client suing GM. What happened?
Well, we represented Ken and Beth Melton, the parents of Brooke Melton, a 29-year-old lady who, on her 29th birthday, was driving on a country road here in Georgia, where she lost control of her vehicle. The officer blamed her. But ultimately, when we downloaded the black box information, we discovered that her car shut off 3 seconds before the crash.
Wow.
And when her car shut off, she lost her power steering, her anti-lock brakes, she lost control, and the crash resulted. And
probably no deployment of airbags either would be my guess. Lauren, to you, so here's the problem. It's an ignition problem. And I have to tell you, Lauren, this is going to sound very unsympathetic, but we're hearing people say, why are folks using those super heavy keys that causes this, in part helps cause this ignition problem? Describe to us how consumers play into this by using heavy keychains.
Well, I don't believe this is a consumer's fault. I think this is the manufacturer of the ignition cylinder of the lock. I don't believe that because you decide to buy some little trinket at some vacation spot and decide to hang it on your keychain. It's a huge industry that people sell key fobs and have multiple keys. That's not unusual. Obviously, that depends on the person. I mean, I only carry the key to the car when I use it, but if you've got the key to your door, the key to your office, you've got some trinket from a vacation, that's enough to cause some weight. Also, driving over rough roads. That's something that we've discussed, you know, with potholes and everything.
Right.
You had a pothole that was enough to cause the ignition to go into either the accessory or off mode. It's the same thing as a parked car. There's no power steering, no power brakes, no power windows, no safety features.
That's exactly what happened to Lance's client. Lance, to you.
Yes.
Now, the company, Lance, told dealers about the issue and said if they wanted to fix it, they could. But that doesn't really get the message out to the public now, does it? What should GM have done, and when should they have done it?
GM's chief programming engineer in 2004 tested this vehicle with just the key and the key fob, and it shut off. In 2005, they had an internal committee meeting where they discovered the ignition switch was defective. Instead of fixing the switch, they started selling these vehicles with the defective ignition switch. They came up with this key fix, but they began selling the vehicle without the key fix. In other words, you had to have an incident, a scary incident where your vehicle shut off, and then you would take it into the dealer, and then they would recommend a fix. Well, in a lot of these cases, the first incident is the worst incident.
Yeah, there is no second incident. I want to show people the makes and models we're actually talking about. The original recall, the 2005, 2007 Chevy Cobalt, 2007 Pontiac G5, and now we're showing the updates to that list, the ones that are in the crosshairs right now: the Saturn Ion, the Chevrolet HHR, Pontiac Solstice, Saturn Sky, Pontiac Pursuit. Lauren, to you, what do I do if I own one of these cars?
You take it to the dealer. You call a local dealer, whichever one that you want. Doesn't make a difference, whatever GM brand you want, and say, usually a Chevy dealer, and say, I've got a problem. I have one of these vehicles. I want the fix done. And now they may not have those parts yet. It does take time for them to get from the factory to them. But I would say don't drive the car in the meantime. Take everything off your keychain. Just use the key itself. And like the other panelists said, it's important to note this can happen without any weight on the keychain. As these tumblers wear, all it takes is a simple key and a jolt, and you could be in the off mode, which means you have no control of your vehicle.
Wow.
It's very dangerous. I would say get a hold of the dealer immediately. If they don't have it, find another dealer that does have those repair parts and get your car fixed immediately, or sell the car. Not everyone's in that position to do that.
Well, and if you sell it, you got to tell people what's wrong with it. You have a moral obligation to do it, that's for sure.
Absolutely,
Lance, to you,
yes, you do.
Lance, to you, where is NHTSA in all of this?
Well, NHTSA knew about this problem in 2007. They investigated a crash with an airbag failure, but they never followed up. We submitted a timeliness query, a letter, to NHTSA after GM initially announced the recall, saying the recall scope was not broad enough. Fortunately, yesterday, GM responded by broadening the recall, but there still needs to be civil and criminal penalties looked at with GM. They knew about this problem for almost a decade. At least 13 people are dead, probably more, and yet it wasn't until the last 2 weeks that they revealed the existence of this defect to the federal government. Their obligation is to reveal a safety-related defect within 5 days under the TREAD Act. This was almost a decade, so there needs to be an investigation of both civil and criminal penalties against GM.
Well, Lauren, do you see investigations, probes coming? What happens next? And really, what happens for consumers? That's what I really care about. Let's get this darn thing fixed.
Well, from a marketing and PR perspective, GM's going to have to deal with what a lot of other manufacturers have had to deal with, and that's going to take a long time for people that have been impacted or know people that own these vehicles to get over maybe a distrust of General Motors, and that's kind of sad because they have some great product on the market right now. But the fact is that a manufacturer produced a part, maybe to spec, maybe not to spec, and when that product got put in on the production line, it passed all of these safeties, essentially, and got out to consumers, and dealers didn't do anything about it, GM didn't do anything about it, and even NHTSA didn't do anything about it. Wow. So as a consumer, I think there's going to be a lot of legal cases out there, with a lot more out there than maybe we're aware of. There may be other deaths or other accidents that maybe no one was able to tie the two of these together. And maybe this other attorney was smart enough to go back and check black box information. That may be something you may have to do. Wow.
Lauren and Lance, thank you. Before you go, I'm just going to tell our viewers what GM had to say, full and fair and balanced here. He says, Alan Blately, ensuring our customer safety is our first order of business. We are deeply sorry. We are working to address this issue as quickly as we can, and this story will go on, and we'll have both of you back. Thanks for coming on today. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we want to know what you think. Here's our question tonight. GM says they put consumer safety first. Do you agree? Log on to jerrywillis.com. Vote on the right-hand side of the screen. I'll share the results at the end of tonight.